Hello everyone. As Patrick mentioned, I will be covering learning onboarding, go through and select the most important things which are related to the onboarding module. There are a couple of major or good changes in that module. So let's start with the first one. The first one is in sub opinion is a minor one, additional enhancements to new hire onboarding journey. But in my opinion, it's a valid one because the SAP changed not changed the look, but improved the page your onboarding checklist, which is something that the users in the past struggle in terms of how to navigate it and what are the next steps in their onboarding process. Right now, there are additional bubbles like text which display to the user with the explanation. What are the expectations? What will happen next? So, for example, if the user will complete personal data collection, usually additional collection or document signature step usually takes a few minutes for the system to be initiated. And there was not, the system didn't provide a way for the user to somehow inform them about it. Now there's text which informs them that next step will be generated in a few seconds. Please be patient. In case it's not going to be initiated, please refresh the website. Another change that I have on the list is additional enhancement to onboarding dashboard. This change doesn't necessarily affect the onboardee. It's more connected to the users who manage the onboarding from the onboarding dashboard. It's a huge change, in my opinion, for the clients which hire a lot of people through and they managing a lot of different legal entities. SAP extended the filter capabilities for the onboarding dashboard. There are two new additional filters available, which are business unit and legal entity. And what is more important, now the user who is managing onboarding dashboard can save their filters. So instead of selecting the filters, every time they access the onboarding dashboard, now through the selected filter that they will be creating, they can easily get to the population that they want to manage. So for example, I'm managing a couple of different countries, couple of different legal entities. On my onboarding list by default, I have 200 onboardees. With a click of the button, I can just select users from certain legal entity. The next change that we've got on the list is something that Camila already mentioned, is the Alumni experience. So it's a post-employment system access. It's one of the major, if not the biggest, changes or new things which are being introduced by SAP in that release. So in the past, whenever the offboardee, in this case, offboardee was finalize his offboarding process and we reached the termination date, the access to the system was revoked, so they couldn't get to the system anymore. With the Alumni experience, we still give them possibility to access the system with their old login credentials. Of course, what they can see and what they can do in that Alumni experience module interface is limited, but what is this important? Even after the leave, employees can still view their documents and data for, of course, a certain period of time. There's a seamless lifecycle support for better alumni engagement, less effort for HR. So, for example, there are certain documents that the user needs and they were available on their profile. For example, the statement, compensation statement, they will not need to ask the HR to provide it to them. They will be able to still, even though they are not longer employee, they will be able to do it by themselves. The next change that I've selected for the onboardee is connected with the improvement of new option which was introduced 2 releases ago, if I'm not mistaken, which is custom tasks. As you remember, the custom task was introduced, so this option gives us a possibility to create tasks which are not necessarily portlet based, so we can gather details from the users which are not part of the employee central data module. And of course, one of the components that we could use in that task were attachments. But the biggest problem was that, of course, the users were able to upload any files that we requested from them. But from the administrator, it was not easy to get those files. Now, with that change, all the files that the user is uploading will be in one place. So in the onboarding dashboard, whenever the administrator will access the onboarding dashboard, they will select the onboardee, and through actions onboarding documents, those documents, attachments that they uploaded through custom tasks will be listed there as well for them to download. Can we move to the next slide, please? Another enhancements is the document flow support for correction after the final review. Final review is also something that was introduced by SAP 1 release ago or 2 releases ago. So it is connected with the user data collection. And if you're using that step, there was a small issue. Can we go back, because that's the next. Yeah, okay, thank you. So enhancement document flow support for certain after. So in the past, whenever the final review was done, and of course there was some changes in the data in that step made by the user, made by HR, the documents were not regenerated. So the documents which were available in onboarding documents were still holding the same data. Now, automatically system, whenever we finalize the onboard, after finalizing final review, if there was changes to the user data, the documents will be regenerated and they will not be replaced. The old ones will not be replaced. The new set of the document will be generated, so we will have both copies. Can we move to the next one? Enhancement to rehired and on employee. With a toggle of the button, if you're using the rehire with the old employment, there's a change which really doesn't affect the administrator, but really affects the overall user experience for the users which are being rehired. With that change, they will not be asked to whenever the rehire validation will be initiated. Of course, when the user is going through the recruiting, they might change their personal email address, and the one that we hold in our database might not be valid because they applied through different email address. So there was a little bit confusion for those rehired with their own employment, because if there was a change in their email address, if they use different email address in the recruiting, whenever the rehire option was initiated, the system asked them to use the old login credentials, like username, to access the onboarding system. With that change, they will be using the one that they've included in the recruiting. So from the user perspective, it's a huge change. It will create less confusion among the rehires, because whatever the email address, username they are typed in recruiting, it will be used for the rehire with the old employment. Can we move to the next one, please? Enhancement in onboarding process for internal hires. It's a minor change. By the default, the internal hire process is automatically enabled, which means supporting functionalities as role support, enhancement, data validation, and data save for Employee Central, and are not available. Of course, and as well with the change, the SAP changed the place where this toggle is available. Now it's in the onboarding general settings. This change reduces administration for that particular functionality of the system, and of course improves consistency in system behavior, validation, and functionalities across UIs and APIs. Enhancements to onboarding integration setup. It's a fun change which is connected with a recruiting module. Now we can, we can select what so now we can define through rules what for what population the onboarding should be initiated and available, the onboarding button. In the past, it was like on and off. We could only select through various, like limit the options for the variables that we could use to define the job requisitions, which could potentially be able to initiate onboarding, was quite narrow. Now, through the business rules, these capabilities are extended. So through rule base, we can extend, we can make it bulletproof that for those job requisition who have those particular variables, the onboarding is available. This function offers greater flexibility in controlling of the process and also ensure that better user experience. Another on the list is handle multiple onboarding processes. This occurred for following scenarios. Onboarding process when you hire, this is a very rare scenario which occurred, but SAP decided to make it clear for the user. It only occurs whenever the following scenarios are matched: when onboarding process is initiated for new hire and the person is going through internal hire, or when the onboarding process for rehire with the employment is initiated after termination of the new hire. So this happens when the one individual goes through two onboarding processes at once. In the past, there was no distinction for the end user, which step or which task are related to particular onboarding process. Now there is under the Explore Your Onboarding Guide, there is an indicator which tells the user to what onboarding process this is connected to. Can we move to another one? Spotlight access for onboarding new hires. Onboarders can now access the personalized public profile via the user profile icon on the top right corner. So they can add their picture, they can add description about themselves. So it is it's pretty much the same as functionality as per typical Employee Central users. Can we move to another next slide, please? Updates onboarding redirects. So landing pages are updated after the completion of onboarding actions. There are a couple new redirects which are connected with the personal data collection, new hire task, E9 section 2, and E-verify. Those minor changes improve the user experience. So it's going to be more intuitive for them to move around.